everybody. And thank you so much for joining me today for this live stream where I'm going to be talking about how to heal the unhealable. And this is going to be my personal story about how I healed from a rare nerve condition and what that taught me about the body's power to truly heal itself. So, have you ever been told that there is no cure for what you're experiencing in your body? If that's you, then you are not alone. And pop in the chat here if you're joining me today live on Facebook, or even if you are watching the replay here. I would love to hear about your story. And if you have any questions, you can always feel free to pop that in the chat. So this is pretty common that folks are told that there's no cure, that they just have to live with whatever's going on for them, or maybe the doctors don't even know what's wrong with you. Does that sound familiar? Well, that was my reality for years. I have a condition called brachioradial pruritus. You probably haven't heard of it, and that's because no one's heard of it. None of the doctors that I went to see had ever heard of this condition. And I've told this story before, but it was actually through a Facebook group like this that I was able to see that there's other people out there that have the condition that I have that are experiencing these same symptoms. And it's incredibly frustrating, the symptoms of brachioradial pruritus. So it's burning, itching, nerve pain in your arms that usually comes on at night, and it basically makes it impossible to sleep. So I would wake up in the middle of the night with my arms on fire, and there would be nothing I could do about it. I would scratch until I bruised and was bleeding. I tried ice, creams, exercises, stretching, all these different things, but nothing gave me lasting relief. And the doctors didn't have answers for me either because they hadn't even heard of this condition before. So I felt helpless, I felt exhausted, and truly scared because I really felt like this was never going to go away and that I would never find the answers. But I refused to really believe that. That was just my mind saying that. And there was a deeper part within me, that still small voice that knew that this was not going to be my life forever and that I was going to find the answers and that my body could truly heal. I am Jenna. If you haven't met me yet, welcome to the group. And I have turned my pain into purpose. I've been helping people for the last 20 years with conditions just like this to help overcome them and really get back to the life that they love and were meant to live. So today I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 keys that helped me heal from nerve pain and get back to dancing professionally. And I'm also going to share with you what I learned through this journey that wasn't only just about my arms, it was also about everything beneath the surface. I was a movement teacher back then as well, so I knew how to care for my body, but nothing that I did was really working. Pilates, massage, adjustments, and pop in the chat if you can relate to that. If you've had a condition before where you've really tried everything and it just feels like nothing actually works. Well, what I learned was that something deeper was going on. And like so many of us do when we don't have answers, I, of course, turned to Google and I researched everything I could. I totally went down that rabbit hole. And I actually did find the answers eventually that I was looking for through a Facebook group, like I said before, where people describe the same pain, that burning, itching pain. And they all had one thing in common, which was a pinched nerve in the neck. And so at that time I thought, well, maybe I'm not crazy. And I already knew about stenosis. I had worked with many clients that had this condition, and I had helped many people through their journey of having nerve pain as a result from having stenosis, whether it was in their cervical spine or in their lumbar spine, their back. But it was hard to imagine that this was going on for me at such a young age. I was in my early 30s. I was actually in my late 20s when these symptoms started. And it took a long time for the doctors to take me seriously when I told them this is what's going on. And, I believe this is coming from my neck and I need to get an MRI so that I can confirm that this is what's going on. I remember at one point I was in a puddle of tears on the floor of my doctor's office begging him to give me an MRI. And finally, they listened to me. I was able to get the imaging, and the MRI technician said something I will never forget. He looked at me and said, "Wow, like, what did you do to your neck? We have definitely found pathology." And it was very scary the way he said it. And, it was very blaming as well, as if I caused this, as if this happened to me because of my own fault. So I went to the bathroom, I started crying, I called my mom and told her what was going on, told her, like, this is what they said, I have stenosis, and my mind went straight to the worst case scenario, which was surgery, losing my ability to dance, which was my passion. It was also part of my career. At the time, I had spent years and years and years training in a very specific discipline of dance. My whole life had been dedicated to it. So I thought I was going to have to lose that and also just take, months off of work to heal. So it felt like the end of everything I loved, but something in me still believed that there had to be another way, and that I was going to find that way. So I listened to that, and I listened to the still small voice above the fear. The fear was very loud, but there was that inner voice, okay? And that's really important for us when we're on this journey, especially if you've been dealing with chronic pain for a long time and it's not going away, to listen to our intuition, because the body does know. And we do have that inner intelligence that can guide us and show us what those answers are for us, and they're really specific to each individual, right? So I decided to go to Esalen, which is this beautiful retreat center in Big Sur, and to take a Qigong retreat. I had never done Qigong before, but I thought this is exactly what I need. I just need to go to this hot spring retreat center, take a week off of work and heal my body and just ask for some answers. And I'll never forget the leader looking at me and saying, "You are not your diagnosis, and you can heal." And it was so profound. That was the moment where my healing journey started and everything changed. So I started looking at the physical reasons why this was going on. After all this research I had done, I learned that I needed to cover my arms because it actually was the sunlight that was triggering this nerve pain, which is why this is so weird and a condition that's often misdiagnosed, is that people can't understand why sunlight would be triggering these C nerve fibers in your skin, but for whatever reason it does. And so I was able to cover my arms. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a total dork. When I go to the beach or the pool, I 100% of the time have to have my arms covered. So I found some really cute bathing suits to make it fun to cover my arms, but I can't go out in the sun without my arms covered at all, ever. Otherwise, it'll trigger the itching pain. So I also realized that I needed to work with my neck, and I needed to work on stabilizing my cervical spine and modifying the dance that I was doing. So I did end up stopping this particular style of dance that I was doing because I really couldn't modify it, and it was causing me a lot of pain. But what I was able to do is find other styles of dance that I could do where I could modify them for my body, where I didn't have to be flipping my neck around in circles or doing too much movement that was aggravating and irritating the nerve in my neck. The other thing I did was I started an anti-inflammatory diet. I went gluten-free. I eliminated sugar, grain, dairy. I did basically the paleo diet, which I've talked about in some of these live streams before. I started incorporating more fermented foods to heal my gut. And I also started doing therapy. I started doing EMDR therapy. Maybe some of you have heard about that, to process the trauma of that chronic pain and losing so much sleep over the years. Because even when I was able to eliminate the symptoms of the itching, I still had sleep issues for a long time. It took me a really long time for my body to trust that it could sleep again. But slowly over time, I began to heal and I began to sleep again. But these new symptoms started showing up. So then I started developing thyroid issues, hormonal imbalances, hair loss. I had mold illness, and it just felt like my body kept turning on me. And what I finally realized was this, that the real issue was not my body, that my body was not the enemy, but that I didn't feel safe in my body. So this was the key, was safety in my body, because I was living in survival mode and I was living in that stress response or that fight or flight hypervigilance state. And I really thought that I was broken, that my environment was dangerous. But I now know that the body is never the enemy. Okay, so it always is trying to protect us. It's just doing its job, and it's not the body's fault, right? And that's when I started approaching healing really differently. I got curious, I slowed down, I started to ask myself, well, what if pain is just a signal to something deeper that's going on? And it's not just a symptom. And that's when everything really started to shift. And so that's when I really embraced these three powerful pillars of healing that I talk about in these live streams, and that I incorporate into the work that I do with clients. And these are the pillars of my group program, Thrive Beyond Pain. And the first one is anti-inflammatory nutrition, right? Because if we're loading our body with inflammatory foods, then we're making it so much harder than it needs to be on our body to do its job, which is to heal itself. So we really want to be feeding ourselves and nourishing ourselves from within. So what I did, as I said before, is I eliminated sugar, gluten, dairy, wheat. And even when I started to feel better and my symptoms were gone, I still continued with this diet because I liked the way that it made me feel, right? And then as I started to heal, I was able to incorporate foods and cheat every once in a while. And now I've even gotten to the point where I have reintroduced gluten to my diet and I am able to eat small amounts of gluten. I still prefer not to eat it. And if I do eat it, I prefer fermented wheat like sourdough, which I make at home. But my body and my gut have really healed to the point where I am able to enjoy some of these foods without really reacting. Okay. But that is the first step, is calming the inflammation from the inside out. And the best way that we can really do that is, through our diet, because that's something we have control of, right? We can control what's going into our bodies. So I'm going to quickly pop in the chat here. And hi, Gio. Thank you for joining today, live from Scottsdale. Beautiful. That is where I grew up. The birds are singing. So the second pillar is to regulate our nervous system, because, pain can be traumatic, and it often is kind of showing us some of the unresolved trauma or emotions, stress, grief that is still locked and stored in our bodies. So using somatic practices, body-based therapies, movement, like I've been teaching here in this group. There's many videos here that you can use as a guide. I have the guide section, and you'll find a tab in there called I think it's called Pilates and therapeutic movement. So there's many videos on there that you can check out that can help you to start these practices right away today to help to kind of restore and relax your nervous system and to bring you back into balance. And number three is also therapeutic movement, but really focusing on strategic, targeted movement designed to strengthen the muscles that are weak, release what's tight, and bring back balance to your body. Not aggressive workouts, but therapeutic movement that is really designed for exactly what your body needs. So when I work with folks, what we start with is a health and a fitness assessment to really see where you're at, look at your previous medical history, previous injuries, things like that. And we are addressing the physical symptoms, right? So this isn't a program where we gaslight ourselves and pretend that we are not having these symptoms and that the body doesn't exist and that everything is just emotional and everything is just in the subconscious mind. This is really a holistic system where we look at mind, body, and spirit and incorporate it all. And for everybody, it's going to be different. For some people, the reason why they are experiencing chronic pain or going through these particular symptoms are maybe the diet piece is huge for them, and that's going to be big if they start to eliminate some of these inflammatory foods, they're going to see a huge difference in the way they feel. And for other people, it's going to be more about their nervous system, more about the emotional work. And for other people, they really need the movement piece of it. They need to move their body more and they need that therapeutic exercise. So everyone's going to be different. But what I found is that really addressing these three areas creates this holistic way that we can look at the body without eliminating anything, right? So what happened for me when I started doing this is my symptoms started to slowly fade. The flare-up stopped, and I began sleeping again, which is amazing because it's really hard for our body to heal when we're not sleeping properly. And most importantly, I was able to trust my body again, right? And feel safe in my body again. And I learned that the nervous system, the subconscious mind, how we move through life, like I said before, it's all connected, but that chronic pain is not a punishment, right? So it can be easy to feel that way, especially if you've been going through this for a long time. And if that's you, my heart goes out to you because I really know how that feels. But we can learn to listen to these signals from the body with care, with attention. And when we work with the body instead of against it, then healing truly becomes possible. Okay. And so that's now the heart of the work that I do. I have my Thrive Beyond Pain program, which is a 4-month program where I guide people through this same process that I'm talking about right now here today, which is reducing inflammation, calming the nervous system, rebuilding that trust with the body and that connection between the body and the mind so that we can fully restore vitality, trust our body again. And I really give you the tools step by step so that it's not overwhelming, it's not too much, you know exactly what you need to do. And the best thing is that you no longer have to suffer to allow pain to keep you from living your life, because I know how that feels to be there. I have been there, and it feels amazing to be on the other side of that, to do the activities that I love to do. I can even go backpacking now. There was a time where I thought there would be no way that I'd be able to sleep on a backpacking mattress and blow up mat and carry 50 pounds on my back. But I've been able to do that many times. And it's just such a joy, right, to do the things that we love to do. So whatever that is for you, whether it's getting back to a sport, like you're injured, you want to get back to playing pickleball or swimming or surfing, or you just want to enjoy more time with your family, be able to go on walks without being in pain, then I would love to connect with you and just see how I can possibly support you. So if you're interested in connecting, then you can comment Thrive below. And I'll just reach out to you. We'll sit down for about 15 minutes on Zoom and just kind of connect and see what's going on and how this maybe will apply to you and your specific condition that you're dealing with, because you are not broken and you are not your diagnosis, and healing is possible. So thank you so much for being with me here today. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop that in the chat below. I'll stay on here for a little bit longer. And we will be doing another live stream next week. Let me know if there are any topics that you really want to dive into, any specific areas of interest. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care and have a beautiful rest of your day.